Welcome learners. In this session, we're going to dive into the topic for Dart inheritance. Inheritance comes into picture wherein you want to repeat the components that is already been created. Imagine you are trying to create a game. There is an enemy character and then there is a hero character. You would want the game to begin in a way that your hero tries to look around, goes around in the game, get some coins, get some articles, and then finally reaches the arena in order to fight the enemy. Now, what you notice is the enemy you can put not even on the final level, you can have subsequent levels also where the game can have enemies, like a small villain, followed by a bigger enemy, and then a final level enemy. This all concept dries down to inheritance. We're going to see with the help of small examples and with the help of Flutter code how to do the inheritance and in fact the entire engineering that went behind creating all the widgets inside Flutter. We're going to see much more in details as we progress into the session. So keep watching this video. Let's begin the session wherein I'm going to talk about your Flutter basics. Perhaps not even Flutter, we're going to go into Dart basics. The thing that we're going to try and understand is going to be known as inheritance. Now, if you are coming from a programming background such as Java or Python, or be it any programming language, this is one of the concepts that would be applicable to irrespective of any framework to any programming language. So let's say over here we're going to try and understand with the help of this simple hierarchy. Let's say we have a person, basically a person class. Now this person class will have two attributes, int age and string name. So basically there cannot be a person who does not have a name or who does not have an age, following which we are going to have student, an athlete, and a professional. So basically these are the three child categories that we would be having, and let me just erase this and connect it from year to year. Correct. So what defines a student is he being into academics. What defines an athlete is he professionally is into some sports. Let's say he is a cricketer or a swimmer, so on and so forth. Following which a professional, let's say he is a working person. So let's say like I'm a working person and I work as a mobile app developer. So in same way we'll be having this particular person, and each athlete is going to have of course a name and an age. A professional would have a name and an age, so on and so forth. So what defines each of them is the characteristics that would be there. For example, when it comes to academics, a student might pursue academics, for example, engineering, doctor, or let's say a master's. In case of athletes, sports, so he would be, let's say, playing badminton. And let's say when it comes to a professional, he is going to be working as a developer. Okay, so basically that defies their role. Now what we're going to try and do is trying to create this entire hierarchy, and then we'll try to establish this relationship between the hierarchy in my entire code. Well, what I am trying to simplify is, when we were doing the first module, you frequently saw me using extends. So if I were to show to you, this is our home screen, and you'll see that this is extending the stateless widget. Timer screen again extends the stateful widget. Again, timer screen state extends your state. So what exactly goes behind in creating this hierarchy, and why first of all have this hierarchy in the place? Let me explain to you with the help of dartpad.dev. Well, what is dartpad? It's an online Dart compiler, so you don't have to install anything and you can try running your code. So over here we know the main function. Well, what's a main? If you have said that it's an entry point to your code, then you're right. If you have not, still don't mind, keep trying to learn this Dart code and you'll be getting across a lot of hurdles that will be coming in between. So here we are creating a class as person. Now, as we decided, every person has got an age and a name. So I'll put over here age, a string name. Now, the moment I do this, it throws me an error. That's because I did not create the constructor. So I'll put over here required this dot age and required this dot name. Now, following which I'll also create a function as display details. So this display details would basically print the person details. For example, person has a name and age. Now, what I'll try and do is try to simply create an object for my person class. Person1. Wherein I'll put age as 23 and let's say name as Victor Stephen. Now, did you notice I put something called as age colon and even over here name colon? Well, what are these called? This variables or this attributes which I'm putting along with the colon are called as named attributes. It kind of helps me that the first parameter is supposed to be the age variable and the second parameter is going to be the name. So let's see if I next try to use my person1 and try to call my display details function. So you see it says person has name Victor Stephen and age is 23. Well, over here if I try to put something like age of person and try to run the code, it says no name parameter with age of person is there. Well, I kind of follow this practice of making this with required and try to create this. Well, if it is not the case, you can even remove this required and then I'll copy this. Let me comment this thing out and put kind of this. So what changes? Well, practically nothing. If I still run the code, you're going to get the exact same output. And in fact, if you're coming from Java or a C# background, it kind of would relate to the syntax that is there. But the problem here is I manually have to remember that the first parameter is going to be the age. The second parameter has to be the name, so on and so forth. Just imagine a scenario where it would be numerous times I would be using this person one. In fact, creating new persons again and again. In that case, I'll have to remember this two variables forever. If you are a person like me and you keep forgetting the things, then probably you should be going with the name parameters. And hence, the developers at Flutter also seem to be people like me. That's because you see this app bar, you see this body, they're all name parameters, and the Flutter team has created a lot of constructor variables that go with required. So I would also want you to follow the footsteps what Google has laid down and try to create your classes with the help of required. Now, this kind of makes sense. That's because over here you're able to understand that the person is top level in the parent hierarchy. Now, what I'm going to try and do is move to the student. Well, every student is of course a person. He is having a name and also an age. So let's say I'll go over here, class student extends person. Now, the moment I do this, it throws me an error. That's because it requires me name and age. But well, student would be academically active. So what I'm going to try and see is degree. I'll try to put one variable as degree of education. And then, like I have done in the case of person, let me create my student required this dot student age required this dot student name required this dot degree of education. Now, the moment I put a semicolon, it still drops me an error. Well, why this is particularly the case when it comes to the student class? Well, that's because, do you remember me extending this to the person? Why? I wanted to have the relationship to be established wherein person is top level parent and student is connected to the person. Hence, we wrote this extends. If I remove the extends, the error goes away. Check. The moment I put extends, the error is coming back again. That's because when it comes to the parent, that is the person class, it requires two variables to be passed. And look, so here we have our super that would be passing the age and name, that is student name, in my super keyword. Now over here, what I will try and do is add the name parameters, that is age and name, and you'll notice that the error goes away. Going forward, what I'll try and do, I'm going to create an object of student class. So I'll put over here student whose age is 12 and student name is going to be Rashan, and the degree of education, because he's 12 years old, he should be into elementary school. Oh, my mistake, he should be in the middle school. Well, what I'm going to next show to you is the moment I use student1 dot display details and try to run the code. Let's try and see if the Rishan student details get printed or not. Well, what do you notice? Person has the name Rishan and age 12 is actually getting printed. So how is that the case? Because the student is extending the person class, you have all the properties and functions that is being applied to the parent, that is this particular class, can be used by this class also. And hence, when we were trying to do the code, you'll notice the moment I do extend, each time I had to write the code for the build function. That's basically over here we have how this all variables to be there. In same way, there is this build function which kind of is mandatory when I'm trying to use the extends state. Now, not just that, over here how you have display details which you wrote as a common code in your parent class now can be accessed by student as well as the person, and hence in this way we are trying to save a good amount of code or in a good amount of efforts that go into coding by creating a hierarchy. What I'm going to do is stop here for now, and in the next session we'll try to understand how we can go about my override keyword. Hopefully the entire demonstration for inheritance, the student, person, athlete, professional, made all sense, and then we have established the hierarchy with them. But wait, didn't you notice when we were trying to do the timer app, @override annotation? Well, there are many keywords that exist on Dart. In the next session, we are going to specifically talk about the @override keyword and specifically the usages where you can have it. For that, you need to stay tuned and keep learning with open minds.